Botox, baptisms, and beer. Woo. Welcome to Behind the Mic here with Radio Theology, the October 6, 2019 edition. Pastor Darren here with Ryan and Lisa. Thanks for downloading this episode. We appreciate any review or comments or share. Would be splendid.
Yeah, err on the side of positive because we have very fragile egos.
Hey, this week, guys, was our 3-year anniversary show.
It was, yeah.
Amazing.
I can't believe we've been able to do this radio show for 3 years.
Yeah, I can't believe they still let us in the building.
Yeah.
I'm teasing. We have a great relationship with ZPL and JR. And
I remember our 3-month anniversary. If you guys remember this, we sat down with, it was about 3 months in, and we asked JR to do an air check on us.
JR is our program director.
Yes, that's right.
And
broken egg.
And I remember
what I ordered.
Yes, I remember. I remember sitting there, and I remember being every time we would talk to him in that first year.
Yeah.
I was always assuming that next meeting would be when he would be like, yeah. I'm sorry I came up with this idea. You guys are going to have to be gone, right?
I'm going to need all your little keys and everything.
Yeah. But I remember him saying early on, let me just say, if you've been listening to Radio Theology for the past 3 years, I want to apologize for probably the first year.
Oof.
Yeah.
It was not good.
We were doing the best we could.
We were.
Yeah.
But that first year, not good. The first 6 months, horrid.
Yeah.
Bad.
I think the word we're looking for was floundering.
Yes. Yeah. Bad radio.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate about JR is I remember him saying, you know what, guys, just keep going. Just keep getting better, because probably what the show is right now won't even be how it even sounds or how it operates in a couple of years from now.
Correct.
And I remember being afraid that every show we were going to get canceled, and then him having vision that hey, in 2 years, his assumption we'd still be doing this.
Yeah.
You might actually get good.
Right.
And I'm not saying we have.
Man.
I'm just saying we don't suck as bad as we used to.
We've gotten better.
Yes.
Yes, because we had good conversations.
Yes.
But too long for radio.
Holy buckets.
We were talking 9 minutes between songs. We'd just lose people. I know.
Yeah.
But if you've stuck with us, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
And please tell us that you've stuck with us from the beginning, and maybe we can send you a special prize or something.
Yeah. Or if you're just listening for the first time ever.
Right.
I don't know how you discovered us, but thank you for discovering us.
Yes.
Maybe you were referred by a friend. Maybe you want to pay that forward and refer it to another friend.
Sure.
But we hope that you're feeling uplifted, inspired, and really our mission here is to have a normal conversation about faithful things.
Faith, hope, and love, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Right. And we got some brand new hats coming out.
Yeah, we got some merch.
They're not necessarily they're not yet available to the general public, but we're casting a net per se. Is if people would like maybe to wear a Radio Theology hat that looks freaking awesome, you could hit us on a DM or email us or just on our Facebook page, radiotheology.com, and we'll talk about getting you a hat wherever you are in the world. But they're hot off the press. We're excited to actually have them in our clutches.
Do you have them in hand?
I don't. They're currently being manufactured.
Oh, right now.
But they are going to be bad to the bone.
Feel it. Yes.
So if you're brand new or you've been with us for 3 years, thank you so much for being a part of this. And we talked about on the show this week, guys, that so much of this started and the opportunity came to us by just saying yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so much is held at bay as far as what God wants to do in our lives by our inability or lack of obedience in just saying yes.
Right.
And we say it all the time here on Radio Theology and also in Spiritual DNA that the fear is your enemy. And I think the number one thing that keeps you from saying yes to anything and everything that's positive in your life that God brings your way is fear.
For sure. When I think that if you've been saying no in fear long enough, then you forget what saying yes even feels like, what your voice even sounds like.
Yeah, say more about that.
Well, I was just talking to a friend who she was sexually abused by her grandfather and just lived in the shadow of this, we don't talk about it, in a very conservative Christian home. And so there's just lots of family dynamics there, and it's so heartbreaking. But now she lost her voice. She Marco Polo'd me, if you're on the app Marco Polo, and was telling me about this 2.5 hour EMDR counseling that she's going through. And what she realized was she lost her voice because of all the fear that was in and around.
You mean she literally
life.
couldn't speak? I'm not following.
No, she just lost her identity, the voice of who she actually is.
Okay.
She just began speaking in ways that other people needed her to speak.
She lost her sense of identity, who she really
Not
was.
her
Sure.
actual speaking voice.
Not her
Got
speaking
it.
voice.
Okay.
Sorry to confuse. But now, as an adult woman, married with 4 kids, she's going back and discovering all of the things in her life that she's looking on with this really painful regret because she said no to everything and stands quiet so often that she does not physically, spiritually, emotionally, any of it know how to say yes.
Wow.
And I'm like, no.
And no fault of her own either.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
like to be in a sexual abuse scenario where something
For
horrible
sure.
is happening to you.
Yes.
Saying yes, it sounds like to therapy and counseling to say, listen, help me sort this out.
Right. Well, and, and it took her forever to do that. And now she's really glad that she is. So I guess just a word of encouragement is you might need to practice saying yes to the teeny tiny small things just to see how it feels.
Well,
Right.
I am an ENFP pioneer leader.
Yeah.
7 on the Enneagram.
7 on the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Compassion, not my great thing. So I don't mean this to sound not compassionate. I'm compassionate about what she's been through. But Ryan you said, not through any fault of her own. The initial trauma, absolutely no fault of her own.
That's what I meant.
Exactly.
Yes, I know you did.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is that where it gets dicey for all of us is we all have pain. Everybody's journey is different, but we all have some type of pain.
Yeah.
And there has to come a point in our life where even in the midst of the pain and the fear, it is on us.
Yeah.
For
It's
sure.
on us to start saying yes. To start saying yes to, I will forgive myself. Yes, I will forgive them. Yes, I will accept God's love for me. These processes, we are actually we join in partnership with God in our own healing.
Right.
He redeems it. The salvation is free, but even that we have to say yes to the gift of it.
Yeah.
So that's that dicey part of saying, maybe. I think what can be crazy in this too, Lisa, is that if we get so used to saying no, I think sometimes we think God stops talking to us.
Right. Yeah. Because, you haven't proven yourself in the past. So why would you be interested now?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever does, but I think
No.
sometimes we can even think that he has gone silent.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe there is. I think in some situations, I mean, not in her case, but I think there are opportunities when God gives us opportunities, and when we say no, he will go on and find someone else that's willing to move.
Yeah. For sure.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that motivates me is I never want someone else to live my purpose in my life.
Yeah.
Because God doesn't need us,
Right.
but he desires us. He invites us in.
Yeah.
And I think there is a danger of, if you are saying no because of fear, you could be wishing your purpose away.
Yeah. Well, and another conversation I had the other day was with a woman who she was trying to decide, am I going to say yes to this big, scary dream? And I said, it sounds like it's already in motion. So that's what I think. God is moving and his purposes are moving. And I said, you just have to say yes and jump on that ship.
Yeah.
It's going with or without you. And she was like, oh, yeah. And that took some of the pressure off of the yes.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to say yes and then start the thing. God is already positioning the people and the resources and everything around her so that her yes is instantly impactful.
Yeah. Well, it's part of it, and Ryan, I think we talked about this in the show. It's part of, you shared about the part of how the show came to pass, how this came together. I mean, literally, for me, years and years ago, Dave Smiley from the Smiley Morning Show comes and says, would you come on a Thursday and let me interview about pub theology? And then maybe could we take calls from listeners and it could be like a Therapy Thursday segment. Well, what was the momentum already happening? For years, I'd been doing pub theology in bars, was used to the non-Christian environment. We had a segment in pub theology called, text Q&A, where people could send me a real-time question in a bar, and I tried my best to answer it. So it's like, did I have to create all this? No, I just had to say yes and stay in the momentum.
Right.
I kept saying yes for, I don't know what it was, 3 or 4 years, coming in every other Thursday with no real thought that it was going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Then JR, our program director, would you ever consider hosting your old show? Yes.
Yes. Totally.
And I remember people coming up to me and being like, oh, that's so courageous that you would go on the radio. And it never really dawned on to me. Maybe this is just my naivety. It never dawned on me that it was a courageous thing. It was just like, it's the next thing to say yes to.
Right.
And then the way that it all unfolded for all three of us to come together.
Yep.
We didn't create the momentum, like you said, Lisa. We just kept saying yes.
Yeah, and I think, too, you could even trace it back, even go farther back to your sensing of your call into ministry in, your high school years or maybe college years?
Well, I felt called to ministry between my freshman and sophomore year of high school.
Okay, cool. So you can even theoretically trace it back to that, and then you think of what life scenarios help to inform that were completely out of your control. So all you're doing is letting yourself get tossed around in the wave.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, I'm willing to jump in. There's I heard a podcast yesterday, an amazing Christian apologist thinker. I mean, he's one of the smartest dudes I've ever heard speak on almost anything. But his name is Ravi Zacharias.
Oh, I thought it was going to be me. Sorry, guys.
Oh, man. Where's the humility button? Can we send some Darren's way? Just kidding.
It's broke.
So Ravi was talking more on the concept of like what happens to us after we die. So he was talking about like heaven, hell, the afterlife. But it's really a conversation, I think, about choice. He said, quote, God gives us a most sacred gift of the prerogative of choice, but he does not give us the power to choose a different outcome to what that choice might entail. The consequence is bound to the choice, end quote. So he's essentially saying, like, God is going to put you in positions of your life where it's going to be either a yes or a no. If we say yes, God knows whether we're going to say yes or not, but he's also going to say, okay, cool, you've said yes, you've taken the step towards where I am guiding your life, but you still have agency. Like, we still have a choice to make in those conversations with God. If we say no, and there's plenty of times in Scripture, I mean, Jonah is a perfect example of this, where he's like, I don't want to go to, where was he supposed to go? Nineveh. He's like, I'm going to go to Tarshish instead. And God's like, that's cool. You can go to Tarshish, but here's what's going to happen now. So it's like, ultimately, it's up to God. We do still have a say, though. And for you to pick up the phone and be like, hey, man, I've got this opportunity to do this radio show on ZPL. They're going to call it Radio Theology. Would you be a wingman? It was kind of reminiscent of when I got the call to rejoin the a cappella group that I was a part of in college, because we were getting signed to a record deal for a video that I wasn't even in that blew up on YouTube. And it was like this, I have to do this moment where it's kind of like you say yes and maybe you think about what you're saying yes to later. But I think God really does honor those excited steps of, let's go do this. Mm-hmm. And I think he gives us that passion inside us to be excited about it. Like, your excitement was informed by decades of saying yes to God's call on your life to be in ministry. Yeah. So when this opportunity of totally unconventional ministry land of being on the radio on a pop station talking about Jesus, that really fired you up. And even that, I think, was of God. My willingness to say, I know Darren. I've heard, we've been in each other's lives for over a decade. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. For me to think of you, which I think was Holy Spirit prompted Lisa.
For sure.
To say, oh, well, we got to get my wife's friend Lisa on. Like, she knows the radio. She loves Jesus. She could totally be awesome. Like, the third part of this. Yeah. And like, how God was working in your life to bring you into the fold was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I poloed you guys. Marco Polo is just... You guys, if
Such
you don't have Marco
app.
Polo, just get the app. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
but
really good.
It was, I had this full circle, enormous moment when I was on 31 headed to Kokomo, because it was 3 years ago around the same time that I was headed south, headed from Kokomo, from a job that was so boring and I just wanted to die. And I was telling God, like, I feel like you've given me this voice to speak into the lives of women. And I didn't know what I was even asking. And then it was 5 minutes later that you called and you're like, hey, would you like to be on the radio again? I was like, and it was awesome. But it was like, I was driving up to Kokomo this week to use that voice. I was going to speak to a group of moms, which is totally my jam. And I'm like, wow, I prayed 3 years ago on this road for this voice. And now here it is. And that, all of it was just small yeses on my part, on your part, Ryan, on your part, Darren. And it was just like, it was just so overwhelming in the moment.
See, and you may be listening right now and you're like, oh, well, that's good for you guys, but I don't host a show and I don't want to talk to moms and I'm not as good as you guys. Yeah. Right? Like, yes, correct. Your path is not our path.
Right.
But we believe to the bottom of our soul, the top of our heads, like, God has created you on purpose and for a purpose. Mm-hmm. You do have a path. And that's what we love about our spiritual DNA workshop, is that it helps people go back and begin to find, like, oh my gosh, yeah, the momentum of this life purpose was happening when I was like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old.
Right.
And I am perfectly equipped to actually succeed in this purpose.
Yeah.
Like it's in you.
Right.
God has created you. You have been given everything you need for life and for godliness through your knowledge of Jesus Christ. It is through that you actually participate in the promises of God and participate in the divine nature. God's Spirit within you, Christ in you, the hope of glory. Like God's Spirit puts you together, actually enters your life and begins moving you towards a custom-made mission for you that has to do with you intersecting with other human beings and helping them experience more faith and hope and love and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and all the fruit of the Spirit. For you, it could be completely different. You could be starting your own daycare. You could be starting your own smoothie stand, right? Like I remember one day talking to my mom. I'm like, Mom, I don't know really what kind of dreams have you had? And she like unloaded that she at some point wanted to start like this fitness smoothie like store. And I'm like,
her.
What? Huh? You wanted to have a smoothie stand? But like she did.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
And maybe that's something that my mom's still going to do in her 70s. I don't know.
I would patronize Debbie's smoothie stand.
I would
For
too.
sure.
I love a good smoothie.
Yeah, like a good
Yeah.
like strawberry banana, like some vanilla protein.
Sometimes
Oh,
the
I know.
banana overpowers.
Yeah.
Sometimes I mix. I love the pineapple in there though.
Oh, really?
I love pineapple.
See, I go
Yeah,
chocolate
yeah.
peanut butter banana, and
Oh.
it's so
That's
delicious.
not a health.
No,
That's called a blizzard, Ryan.
That's my favorite smoothie, actually. We can get the cookie
Anyway,
door.
I don't know
blizzard.
we don't know what your purpose is, but I guarantee you this: the next step forward is found in your next yes.
Ooh, yeah.
That'll preach.
And I just realized as we're talking about this, I say this kind of flippantly sometimes when I'm trying to figure out where God's leading me. Is I'll say this to God. Actually, is listen, God, the answer is always yes. Okay, like we've established that, God. I've been following you since I was like 6. The answer is yes. I just need to know exactly what I'm supposed to do because you know the answer is always going to be yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I had created that like as a philosophy tool we're talking about right now, but that is something that I will say to him often. And it's worked out pretty well.
I think it's availability that God really likes, that gets him excited for us. That we're even like as children of God. So I think I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Lisa, you're in the same boat. Darren, your kids are a little bit older, but like kids, man, I asked Olivia the other day, I was like, hey, what could we do today? She's like, well, and she just ran off this litany of, she's like, well, we could go to the park, or we could just go for a walk around the neighborhood. We could go get ice cream, and it's like, the more she got excited, the more I loved being her dad and just smiled at her. I'm like, kid, we can do any of that. Let's just pick one. And maybe, who knows, as we're going to ice cream, we might get a wild hair and say, ooh, let's go just walk outside and look at the pretty flowers outside. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is a journey and an adventure. Yes. However, it does not come without suffering, without pain. And even in that, though, we were promised God's not going to leave us, but he also has a plan and a purpose for that too. Like, I love that God is, he just doesn't waste anything. Everything is usable.
Yes.
He's like, I got this. I'm the master creator. You give me an ingredient that you think that I've never seen before, and I'm going to blow your mind.
Talk about Master Chef.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about Sarah Welsh, who's a faithful listener to the podcast and has been a Spiritual DNA, one of our table leaders. Today's thought of the day, or this week's thought of the day, was about God being a green light God. And she has shared with me multiple times that was a paradigm shift for her that's changed her life. And like you just said, Ryan, like for you, you're a green light dad. Like when you see the joy of your daughter wanting to do stuff with you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Ice cream, park, fill in the blank. My daughter wants to enjoy a relationship with me.
Yeah.
Guess what? Green light.
Now, I'll pause you for a second, just for a second, because there are moments like 5 minutes before dinner that always happens at 5, because my wife is a very highly organized type 2 on the Enneagram. She keeps the ship moving.
Yes.
When she's like, can I watch My Little Pony on my iPad? First of all, I'm like, it's my iPad.
Right. Yeah,
and no, you can't, because we're about to have dinner. So there are moments where, because I know better than she does, I'm a red light dad, but I'm in the big scheme of things. Disclaimer: I'm a green light dad.
I would agree.
Yes.
There are times, like the whole cliche that God's answers to prayer they're usually like yes, no, or wait.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Not now.
Not now. So I agree with that, but I think most of us approach God, oftentimes, I don't know if most of us do, many people approach God with the assumption that he's angry at us, he's disappointed in us, and he's probably not good enough to give us the green light to do something that we're passionate about.
Yeah.
And we talk about this in spiritual DNA, that the place that you're most passionate about, it means it's something you care about to the point that you'd be willing to suffer for it. And if God has placed a passion in you, like, of course he would actually let you serve and actually create something in that vein, because when the going gets tough, which it's going to,
Yes.
you won't quit. And so we just want to encourage you. It may not be a radio show for you. We could come up with scenarios. You know your scenario. The scenario you're thinking of right now is, if you know that that's not in contradiction to the Word of God, like, no, God is not green lighting you to murder your neighbor.
No.
Okay, that's a red light issue. Okay, God is not green lighting you to lie to people and deceive them on something that's going on in your life. No green lights on that. But if it's something that you know is not a contradiction into God's word, and you've actually submitted that to him, God, is this something you could lead me into, and it won't go away? What would it look like for you today to just say that I'm going to move with the faith that I've got a green light from God to move forward in it?
Yeah.
It's good. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say so good. I was just echoing.
There's, as we're discussing this, I don't know when the first time was that I saw it, but so JFK was one of the first presidents to have, or like most recent presidents to have a kid while he was in office. He didn't have it, but Jackie O did. You know what I mean? Anyway, so JFK Jr., there's a really famous picture of him playing under the desk in the Oval Office while his dad is seated. You've seen it?
Yes.
Like, he's just a little kid doing little kid things, but it's like this concept of no one else except the son or daughter of a king. Work with me, I know he's the president, but like the son or daughter of a king, like, can enter into the throne room that boldly. Just like, my dad's here.
Right.
Like, this is where my dad hangs out. That's my dad. And so there's a verse that every time I see that picture, and as I hear us talking about, like, God is giving you the green light to move, it's, let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Hebrews 4:16, where it's like, just enter in boldly. Like, through Christ has done it all on our behalf.
Yeah.
Like, good grief. That's Easter, right? Like, cross and empty tomb. It's like, man, you don't have to strive. You don't have to keep proving yourself. I know that as an Enneagram 3 and just as me, like, that's something that I feel the weight of daily, of like, I gotta grind. I gotta work. I gotta prove. I gotta make sure people see me this way. And therefore that's how I get my value and acceptance. It's like, whoa, that's a total lie. It's like, nope, Christ has done it all on your behalf. There's nothing wrong with working hard, but don't try to work hard to put yourself on the cross. Like, good grief. But this concept of moving towards this totally open invitation that God gives us to be like, you're my kid. Nothing can separate you and me. You know, and Jesus knew that so much. I mean, he was constantly telling his disciples, he's like, if you've seen me, you've seen the one who sent me. You've seen the Father. Essentially, you're hanging out right now with God.
Right.
I'm washing your feet. We're healing people.
Yeah.
You know, so like, move forward into the yeses that God is nudging you to, because I guarantee he's going to provide you with everything that you need on the other side of it.
Yes.
And more.
And more.
It'll blow your freaking mind.
Right.
Trust me.
Yeah.
And it'll still be unbelievably terrifying. Things will go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like when we volunteered to send Lisa over a 17-story building.
Oh, about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We raised
Thanks for doing
$1,000, send Lisa over the edge of a 17-story building. You kind of said yes, kind of. You
did,
agreed to it, but
Yeah.
sort of. But we surprised you with it.
You were
Sure.
a team player.
Yep.
And here you are, 17 stories above, which is like, 170-some feet. And I just think about, like, it's a small analogy, but you're up there. You're terrified. You don't want to let go of Mike, the security guy, that's the rappelling officer.
Yes, this poor man.
Yeah, ma'am, you must stop embracing me, right? You wouldn't let go of the pole. It was supposed to be this beautiful moment where you rappel, and we had a GoPro, and you're going to have all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
None of that worked.
No.
All of your salivation glands shut down.
Shut down.
You had, like, you're terrified.
Yeah.
You have no spit in your mouth. The stupid GoPro doesn't work.
Yep.
Like, all this stuff goes wrong. It wasn't the perfect rappelling thing ever.
No.
But, like, it was exhilarating, and you accomplished it. You got to the bottom without dying.
Exactly.
And we raised good money for, a great cause.
Hallelujah.
We're not saying that following Jesus is like, a cakewalk here.
No.
Right.
Things go wrong. Stuff is tough.
Yeah.
But here's the option. You keep saying no and sit on the sidelines with your greatest companion, fear, and accomplish nothing and deal with the pain of regret for most of your life or all of it, or you lean over the side of the 17-story building of life, even if the GoPro breaks, and you say yes to the momentum that God is leading you into.
Yeah, hopefully the rope doesn't break.
Yeah.
That would be bad.
Well, if it does, a good part of your walking with Jesus, you just go to heaven anyway.
Yeah.
It's the paradox of reaching the summit of your accomplishment by reaching the ground. I mean, you're going down to essentially win in rappelling.
For sure.
You're like, I'm doing this.
Yep.
Let's go get it.
That's right.
I love it. I love it. Listen, we jumped into a bunch of other stuff on this episode. I got into soapbox about Demi Lovato's baptism and other things. We don't have time for it.
Yeah.
You can get listen to the entire show if you want to. It released on Monday. And we want to thank Darren Cooper for editing these episodes, putting stuff together. We want to thank Jonna for producing much of our show. And we want to thank you for listening.
Yes.
We're trying to get our act together over here, hoping that we're making it easier for you to get this content. We realized this past week there was a broken link in the podcast, and we just changed this podcast. Maybe you noticed that. And we've got all these issues behind the scenes that we're trying to figure out so we can make it simple for you to not only get this content that we hope brings more faith, hope, and love to your life, but for you to be able to share it and invite people into this journey. And we'd love to hear from you. You can email us, either Darren, Ryan, or Lisa at blackbirdmission.com, or you can just message us on Facebook, radiotheology.com. And once again, we'd ask that you'd comment, leave us a review, or share the podcast. And, man, thank you so much. Whether you've been with us for 3 minutes or all 3 years, it means the world to us that you allow us to be a part of your life. So have a beautiful, beautiful day. We'll talk to you next week on Behind the Mic. And until we do, never forget, God's for you, not against you. He's near you, not far from you. And he's created you on purpose and for a purpose.